Hey guys, and oh yeah, it's okay. Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Rankum. This one has been one that's been popped up in the poll a lot of times, and it is finally run, and so we're doing lost characters. And I've got assembled a good panel here. I've got with me for our first time appearance. I've got Danny Cost. Danny, how's it going? And what is your favourite Lost episode?
Hey, how's it going? My favorite episode, I would have to say Walkabout is the classic. There's a lot too. Greatest Hits is also another good.
And also I've got with me is Linus. Linus, how's it going?
I'm doing pretty well. Very excited for this list. If you know, I was kind of vocal on the polls to get this one to its win, even going against my other love, Muppets, in a cruel war of polls. But we're finally here, and I'm excited to do this.
And what's your favourite Lost episode?
It's got to be Through the Looking Glass. I think that's just the twist at the end, the whole overarching story, not Penny's boat. I think it's just the best Lost episode.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, my favourite episode will probably have to be Walkabout as well. It's like just the first sort of glimpse into John Locke's life and just sort of shows how he got there and all that. And yeah, this is going to be a fun list. I might have some shocking ones on my list, but we'll find out. But yeah, so basically how the show works, we each go around and nominate a lost character, and the other people say yes or no to them. And if it gets two yeses and a no, then it makes a list. If it doesn't, then it's rejected and thrown down the hatch and forever.
Down the hatch.
But we all have a save, and so basically, if Linus wants to nominate Nikki as an option,
no, I don't.
But both me and Danny say no to it. Then, if he wants to, he can save her. But why he would, I don't know. But yeah, to kick it off, I'm going to throw it over to Danny for the first nomination.
So are we listing our top 12 or just any from our list?
You can just pick any from your list in any order.
All right.
Yeah.
So the first one I want to list, I want to put Saeed.
Yeah, Saeed is on the table. Linus, what do you say about Saeed?
He wasn't in my personal 12, but I do love the character Saeed, so I think for his overarching story, I think he probably deserves a spot on the show's top 12 list, so I'll probably give Saeed a yes.
Yeah, and Saeed makes it. My vote wouldn't have mattered. I actually probably would have said no. He kind of lost some steam sort of halfway in the series for me. But it doesn't matter. Saeed has made the list. Linus, what's the nomination you're going to throw out first?
Okay, I'm going to go with a character that's not really what I think is the absolute best character of the show, but my favorite character all time from Lost, which is Charlie Pace. And I think he's fantastic.
Um, yeah, I'm going to go first on this. And I've got Charlie on my list, and so it's going to be yes for me. Like, Charlie's been a very interesting character. He's just one of those ones that I identified with really early on from the first episodes. Like, just this rocker, just out of his depth in this random island with nothing, and like and even the whole story of him being tempted by drugs and with Locke ever helping him out with that, and just that arc is just enough to show that he deserves it. Danny, what would you have said about Charlie?
Definitely yes. Charlie was in my top 5. Two of the episodes that I love, again, like I mentioned earlier, was Greatest Hits, the Fire and Water episode, the Moth episode. So, Drive Shaft, all the way.
Fire and Water.
And okay, it's down to me for my it's down to me for my first nomination. I'm going to throw out one that he's a lot of people may see him as as just the comic relief character, but his arc sort of went all over the place. Like, he sort of went from just being reluctant to do anything and going on missions, and of course I'm talking about Hurley. So I mean, like, everyone loves Hugo. I mean, Hurley's just one of those characters that is just one of those ones that yesterday is like, I quite like Hurley in a way. It's like, and just look, you can identify him with easily as like he's one of the ones that and as he pointed out at one of the episodes, I think, like, he lost a lot of weight on that island, slightly anyway, but he didn't, like, even though a lot of people would talking shit about him, say that he hasn't lost any weight. But anyway, Danny, what do you say about Hurley?
I mean, so far I can't argue with any of you guys' list. I had him there too. I actually had him at 8. It's a little inside joke because I have him in the lighthouse. He was always like the voice of the reason, I think, in the show. In the beginning, again, like the comic relief and kind of and I wrote an interesting fact that he said did 329 times the entire series. So when I think of Lost, even casual fans, Hurley is probably something people talk about.
And Linus, what do you say about Hurley, or Harley, as Chris Clark would have put it?
Yeah, Hurley's definitely one of the most iconic characters from Lost. I got a little Hurley pop right here, even as the Apollo bar. But I do love Hurley's character a lot. I love his relationship with Charlie that grows over the years. I love how when everyone's stressed out on the island, Hurley builds a golf course to relieve stress. One of my favorite scenes in the entire series is when they get the Dharma van working and Hurley's going down the mountain, and then they get the Dharma van to turn on, and he is the joy of the show for the most part, but he has his dramatic arcs. I think the whole storyline with him seeing Dave in that episode from season 2, I think, was great, and just the inner demons the character had. And I think his episodes are honestly pretty sleeper hits. They're very good for the most part, and I think he's a great character, so definitely it's a yes for me.
And I mean, surely it's not because Sam Levine was in one of those episodes either. Danny, it's back to you for your next nomination.
My next nomination, I'm going to go with Jin Soo Kwon. Personally, I think Jin had probably the best arc that nobody really talks about. I when I think about I think of the freighter. I think of him going back in time. when I think of Jin Yon, I mean that's another episode that is just uh like just a standout episode for me. And just like the fact that he kind of started off like not knowing any English and kind of like the outsider and stuff like that, and he just like, and then bringing the two son together, the couple, and yeah.
I'll go next on this one. Yeah, Jin is one that he wasn't in my top 12, but he was. I still had him on my list because I always go a little bit more anyway, just in case. He is really interesting because I mean, like the whole arc of him not speaking English must have been really hard on the actual actor because the actor really knows English as well as his native tongue. So I mean, to just speak in his own language for the majority of that first season must have been hard on him a lot of the time. But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say no to him because I think there's a few more ones that go. But Linus is the tiebreaker. Linus, what do you say about Jin?
Out of both of the Kwans, I think Jin is definitely my favorite out of all of them. I think he does, like Danny was saying, have one of the most underrated arcs in the series about how he's like kind of the strict, but then like he goes through all this change in the island, and he finds out Sun was going to leave him, and he finds out all these things in the end. What's the deciding factor for me, which is really difficult, is Jin's death with Sun, is because I think Jin made a pretty stupid decision by drowning with Sun in the submarine because he had his daughter back at home. He didn't go back for her. Well, I love the character of Jin. I don't know, just like the lasting impact is sort of tainted for me for the character just because of how he basically just lets himself die and leaves his daughter to orphan, where Sun's parents, you saw how Sun was raised, very abusive parent relationship like that, and I'm sure their daughter would go to Sun's parents and it wouldn't be a good relationship either, so just slightly I'm gonna say no to Jin.
Yeah, well, that's fair. Jin doesn't make the list. Linus, who do you want to make the list?
Well, I think we gotta start putting some big names on here, so I'm gonna go with probably my number one, which would be John Locke. I hope this is a unanimous one, just for I think Locke's episodes are all fantastic. His storyline is all pretty much fantastic. What he goes through in the series, minus the episode where he like works on the weed farm. It's kind of weird, but I think for the most part, Locke is fantastic. What the character goes through, and he's the polar opposite to Jack, and he's fantastic in his role. So yeah, Locke is one of the absolute favorites of mine.
Danny, Locke is on the table. What do you say about Locke?
He's a lock for me. Definitely, like I said from the beginning, he was like the man of the island, the mysterious guy. How did the guy that we had the flashback where he's paralyzed? How did he get healed? And just the intrigue and the dynamic between the man of science versus the man of faith. So, yes, Locke has to be on there for me.
Yeah, I mean, Locke has now been locked on our list, but I would have said Jess as well. I mean, he was definitely the perfect foil to go against Jack on just about every decision Jack made. Is like just about every decision Jack made, Locke always had something like, oh, if you do this, it might all work out better. Like, and half the time Locke was right, but it was just one of those duo relationships that really worked well together as a unit. But yeah, I mean, Locke is really good. Anyway, it's back to me for my next nomination. And I'm going to throw out one of my sort of. Actually, no, I'm going to throw out one of my obvious ones first. good old Sawyer. Sawyer is one that would go for about. He was he started off as a comment, ended up on the island, just sort of the way he started by just hoarding and everything and making people go like, "Oh, if I'll give you this, if you give me that," it's like just still and like and near the end, like he sort of his art sort of changed, and that change seemed so natural. It was just one of those ones that he became a leader of his own camp at one stage. It's like he was one of the driving forces of actually helping everyone, making sure everyone got off the island, and how he cared about Claire a lot of the time as well when Charlie was had died, and like just the way he always looked out for everyone, even if he didn't really like them. But like I know him and Jack also had some sort of altercations between each other, and they didn't really like each other, but it's like that mutual respect there as well. But Linus, Sawyer's on table. What do you think?
I'd give Sawyer a yes. I think especially from the arc he has in season 5 with the whole LaFleur on the living in the Dharma houses, Dharmaville with Juliet, and how his character definitely changes over time, because there's parts in season 1 where he's like pretty much the villain. He's the antagonist of the series in the very beginning of season 1, where we're all sort of against him, and he does some pretty bad things, but he does grow as a character, and you see like the travesty with him. And I think one of the best moments in the show is when he finally gets to meet the real Sawyer in in season 3, and it's that's what like his whole life was leading up to, is that one moment that he wanted to finally fulfill. And I just think he's such an interesting and complex character, so I enjoy watching him on screen a lot. So I'm definitely giving Sawyer a yes.
Yeah, so Sawyer's on the list. Danny, what would you have said about Sawyer?
Yeah, I have him on my top of the list too. Mostly for the same reasons. You know, at first he was the wisecracking, the guy who gave the nicknames, but even from season 1, one of the moments that I really liked was when he talked to Jack right before they went off the boat about him and his father, about how they met. And then I thought that was like one of the first moments where we saw kind of like there was a different side to Sawyer. And yeah, and the LaFleur was great. I don't think we mentioned about how he jumped out the plane, so the rest of the Oceanic 6 could make it on there.
Okay.
And also yeah, I think he pretty much was on the island the whole time. Either in the past, in the future, but yeah, he was something that someone who kind of grew in. I also thought he had a kind of a complicated backstory.
Oh, that's back to Jude. Now, Danny, who's the next one you're going to bring up?
Since I guess we're all bringing our big guns, I'm gonna pick my top guy, Ben Linus. I think in terms of a character, he was somebody that we despised, an antagonist that is a villain. And throughout the series, we just got to see I think he just acted. Michael Emerson, I think, acted the heck out of that character. And when you saw him as young Ben, and then just his desperation for his power, and then when he was trying to do everything for the island, for Jacob, and one of the scenes that always gets to me is like he says to Nadia, I believe, that he's like, please just let me go with them because nobody else will have me. And then she's like, I will have you. And then just for his story to end, that he works as like second in command with her as his number 2. It just felt like his story was just so complete.
Ben is on the table. Linus, what do you say about the guy who shares a name with you?
I am definitely letting Ben, Linus, or Henry Gale, whatever you want to call him in. I think, like I said, probably one of the best acted performances in the entire series. What Michael Emerson does. There's one scene in particular I want to point out in season 4 where his daughter Alex, the Martin Kimi, has her, and he says, "Come right out here, or we're gonna shoot your daughter." And he's like the mega manipulator, so he's thinking he has them straight, and he thinks nothing's gonna happen, so he says, "I'm not coming out," and then bam, they shoot his daughter just like that, and just the pure reaction and on his face, you can see that this guy is he's messed up, he's done some terrible things, but he has this heart and he has this passion and he does care about things, and it's portrayed really well through what Michael Emerson does, and it's definitely one of the best additional characters that they've added on to the series that wasn't from the initial crash, but I think he's definitely someone that the show is iconic to the show and is fantastic.
Yeah, and I mean, I would have been a yes for me as well. Ben was just one of the perfect villains that they put on the show. And once again, like, he changed into a good guy, and at the end, is like he showed his vulnerable side when, especially in that scene where his the Martin had Alex out there, meant to kill him. So I mean, it definitely showed he definitely had a lot of heart to the character. Linus, who are you going to bring up next?
It's time to go out the big guns and nominate Jack Shephard. Jack Shephard is probably one of the absolute best characters of the show. He's the protagonist. He leads us through all this, but he's not just your average pretty boy doctor protagonist. He has all these issues that follow him, and like I said, my favorite episode of the entire series is Through the Looking Glass, where you see Jack's life falling apart completely, that the island meant so much to him, and he is initially the first person that takes over the Jacob role. He is like a great leader, but he has his flaws also, and he's not perfect, and I think the island shows that to him, and I think he's a fantastic character for what Matthew Fox portrays with him. I think 9 out of 10, you click on a Jack episode, you're going to be extremely entertained. Of course, the one time is probably the Stranger in a Strange Land, but we don't need to talk about that one exactly. But for the most part, Jack's character is extremely interesting, exciting, and just the dynamic with his father, the dynamic he creates with all these characters, it's just fascinating to watch whenever he's on screen.
Yeah, and I'll go next on this. Yeah, Jack. I mean, he's in my top 12. I mean, he's going to make the list. I mean, he's just one of those really interesting characters out there. It's like he didn't even want to be the leader at the start, but it's like everyone just nominated him. It's like, and his struggles of being that leader really helped drive him forward. It's like he was the reluctant leader that no one wanted. Near the end of the season, he was sort of the leader that where his leadership really came out. It was like and just keeping everyone in line, and like even at times keeping Sawyer and Locke in line is just really worked. And whether it's the scenes where he's seeing his father all over the island following the ghost, or in the flashbacks and with his toys, like, just works so well. Danny, what would you have said about Jack?
He's a yes for me too, but I'm not as high on Jack as a lot of other people are. He still, of course, has to be on there. And part of why I love Jack again is just because of how he interacts with all the other characters. And again, it's like that almost the Joseph Campbell, like as we were saying, the unreluctant hero. that he just kept fighting and fighting the fact that he didn't want to fail, and he just didn't want the job. And then like once, and then like what Linus said, like when he was the first one to say, "I'll step up and do it." So I think like basically we can't forget about just how the opening of the pilot just opens with his eyes, and then how it ends with him closed. So it's like it is Jack's story.
And it's back to me again. We've already got 7 on the list. I'm going to throw out my out there suggestion.
All right.
I'm going to nominate Christian Shepherd. Now, this is one that you only really see in the flashbacks, but all the time you see him, he was helping Jack out, sort out his problems, and even though it technically wasn't him that you saw on the island, but to Jack, it was his father that he saw all the time, and just the way his father helped him overcome his fears, and just shows sort of that family relationship that worked. But I think he is worth to actually be considered. So I mean, Linus, what do you think about Christian?
That was one that was not on my list, but I think you make a very interesting argument for putting him on the show's list, which I think you're right in a lot of aspects. That in the flashbacks, what we see of him is very interesting and compelling, and most importantly, like notable at the end when Christian is the one that basically tells Jack what's going on with the church and the whole flash sideways and whatever, and he's the one to sort of bring the series to a close, kind of, which is a very interesting role for his character to do. Why I'm going to say no is that I think there's a lot more characters on the island that we get developed more that I think has a spot on the list, even though the performance of Christian Shepherd and everything around him, what he does in the series, is very important. And I also love the fact that he's Claire's father also. And that's neat how that situation happened. But I think there's a lot of other characters on the island that deserve the spot more than he does.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Danny, what do you say about Christian?
I respect that you put him on that, nominated him, but again, there's just such a vast amount of characters on the list. I mean, maybe an honorable mention, but he would not make my top 12. But definitely in shaping Jack and who he was very important to it, but just not enough for me.
Anyway, it's back to you, Danny. Danny, who's the next one you're going to bring up?
All right. I'm trying to decide if I want to go also obscure, if I want to just save the good ones. So, I think I'm going to save some good one. I'm going to go with Mr. Echo.
Oh.
I think season 2 had its ups and downs, but out of all like the tailies and stuff, even though we didn't really have so much time with Mr. Echo, I think the impact that he had on the show, the Psalm 23 flashback episode, and how he kind of was just like trying to confess for all his sins and stuff, and that he kind of like gave in, and his death, I think, was impactful. So I think I'm gonna, that's what I put him in on the list for me.
Yeah, I'll go next on this. Yeah, Mr. Echo is an interesting character because, I mean, he's one that you don't spend a lot of time with, but in the time you do spend with him, he is interesting and compelling. Is like, and the fact that, like, he spent most of his first 40 days on the island just not speaking, just being silent and helping out, just quietly, like. And some of my favourite scenes with him was when he was building the church with Charlie and helping out Charlie and beating up Locke at times if he needed to. But it was like he was just one of those ones that was always there, and then and always sort of whenever Locke would say something crazy, is like he's always the first one there. Is like, Locke, I believe you. We're going to do this. So I mean, yeah, as a yes for me. Linus, what would you have said about Mr. Echo?
It's funny, Mr. Echo was probably the one I was going to bring up next also. I love Mr. Echo. He's one of my favorite characters, and I think part of the thing that makes him so interesting is he's in this show for about one season, and he has that lasting of an impact where when I think of Lost characters, he's up there for me just because I think his story is so interesting that I don't know if that'd be something I'd really think of like a Nigerian warlord turned priest, but how the show conveys it and having that diverse of a character there and just what he does, like his relationships, like you say, how he changes Charlie and he gets Charlie to burn down the Beechcraft because he doesn't need that stuff anymore, and he brings that impact towards him, the impact he has towards Locke about the hatch, and he changes his whole mind about that, and the impact that the character has on like Anna Lucia, and he's such an impactful character even though he has such a small screen time. But I love Mr. Echo a lot, so definitely I want him on the list.
Anyway, it's back to you, Linus. Linus, who are you going to bring up next?
I'm going to bring up Desmond Hume. I think another great character. Like the first interaction we ever see with him is kind of in the flashback with the Jack, and then you see that he was on the hatch, and I think that's probably one of my favorite storylines is Desmond's whole flashback area, his relationship with Penny and Charles Whitmore, leading him to being in the hatch, doing the button for this period of time. And then when he gets out of there, he has those flashes and the relationship he impacts with Charlie. And what happens after that is I do love Desmond as one of the best characters of the show, but the only argument I could hear against him is like I kind of think in season 5 and 6, his character kind of teeters off. He's not in the show as much and he's not doing as much, but I think the performance that Henry Ian Cusack does, and I don't think you can argue that The Constant is one of the best episodes Lost has ever had, and whenever it's a Desmond episode, it's going to be pretty good, no doubt.
Yeah, I'm going to vote to you, Danny. Danny, what do you say about Desmond?
It's kind of like Linus and I switched places because I was originally going to choose Desmond as my guy. So, yes, 100%, he's my number 2 best character. Again, The Constant, I dare anybody else who can say that they didn't tear up during that conversation. And just, even with his connection with Faraday being his constant, just that whole being the failsafe that, like, when he was in the hatch, kind of parallel to the finale when he was at the heart of the island and how he was just was always kind of like the one that has to reset and bring people together. Like he was the one that kind of was the first person to remember in the flash sideways and got the others to remember. And you always think of Des and Penny, and even just a couple of weeks ago, they had the Twitter picture of them being reunited. So that just shows you how much Desmond meant to the series.
Yeah, Desmond would have been a hard yes for me as well. I mean, just for basically everything you guys said, like he was the glue that sort of held everything together, and I have to say it is funny that Linus put up Desmond because it's my turn to nominate, and I was actually going to nominate Faraday as my next up. I mean, Faraday is another one of those ones that came into the show late. I can't remember what season it came in now,
Season
but
4.
I mean, yeah, he came in late, but I mean, the way he came in, sort of as part of the team, it's like, and then he ended up sort of helping get it on the side. It was like essentially they came in for the mission to get Ben, and because Charles wanted Ben and all that. but yeah, I mean, it's just one of those ones which I think has made another lasting impression, and even with his mother sort of being and aligned with Charles as well. It was just something that I didn't expect. Faraday is just one of those characters which just came in and sort of changed till the end. Danny, what do you say about Daniel Faraday?
First of all, how many do we have right now? In terms
We've
of our
got
list?
nine so far.
9?
So 3 more.
All right. Because Faraday was one of my honorable mentions, but now that I think about it, like when kind of like seasons were a little bit kind of like weak, he kind of brought the whole the time traveling aspect to it, the constant, like as again, like, I mentioned earlier about him being the constant, him and Desmond kind of working in the 2 different timelines or whatever. So and I can't go wrong with someone who shares the same name, so I'm gonna give him the edge and say yes.
So Faraday makes the list. Linus, what would you have said?
Well, I do love Faraday. He's probably one of my favorite characters. I couldn't personally have said yes to him being on the list just because I think he's a great character and he's written very well, but he's in season 4, and then in season 5 he just sort of disappears when he goes in the submarine for a little bit. And I do enjoy the character, but I think there's some other stronger characters that could have made a spot for the list, even though Faraday is just one of my favorites to watch and my favorites to act. But I think a lot of his characters, like, maybe you can kind of make a joke out of it and there's sort of memes about him, but I do like the character a lot. So I'm happy he made the list, even though personally I couldn't have voted for him.
Anyway, it's back to Danny for his next nomination. Danny, who do you have now?
I'm going to nominate Dr. Juliet Burke. She started off as somebody who was one of the others that we didn't really know much about. And then again, we got one of her backstories. We learned about Goodwin, about how Ben kind of just manipulated her, and how she kind of developed into her own kind of character. Another one of the scenes that you think about is like when she helps deliver son's baby, or just tells her it's a girl, with the ultrasound. And then of course when you think about the sacrifice and like the Flash, one of the moments of when the finale, when Sawyer, when they talk about getting when they don't going Dutch, and just the dynamic between Sawyer and Juliet, that was one of my favorite moments of the finale. So Juliet would be on my list.
I'm going to go ahead and go next. Juliet was one that I had on my list, and it's just one of those another one that really changed a lot from when she was introduced, because she was betrayed by the others, and in the end, and just the arc that she had, and ultimately actually helping reset the timeline and sacrificing herself to save everything. Is like, it was enough for me to say yes to Juliet. Linus, what would you have said to Juliet about Juliet?
I probably would have said no, to be honest, but I do like the character of Juliet, but there's just some aspects I liked the character, but it was never one of those characters that I really completely gravitated towards or anything. I think a lot of her arc is interesting, the whole thing with her sister and how she's just brought to the island, and her whole motive is she wants to leave, and in the end she sacrifices so that others can leave, and I think that is very fascinating. So I'm glad she made the list, but personally she's not one of my favorite characters.
Okay, we've got one spot left. Linus, do you have that one that will fill up the spot?
I have a couple, but there's one that I know kind of needs to make the list. So I'm gonna nominate Kate Austen as probably pretty much the second lead of the show. What Evangeline Lilly does. There's a lot of aspects to her character. She's the first character backstory we learn about in the series, and she's one of the most important ones, growth-wise, development-wise, and there's just a lot of aspects to her scenes. I love the scene in season 1 where she gets the airplane toy and you hear Beyond the Sea, or whatever, the French version of Beyond the Sea playing, and she's just playing with the airplane. I think it's a very dramatic moment, and you see what she goes through with her stepfather, the abuse that her mother had, and just her whole criminal history, and you understand why she is the way she is. And it's a lot of active prejudice when they find out that she was the convict on the plane, and it's the forgiveness, which is the theme is shown with her character a lot. And I think her relationship with Jack, her relationship with Claire and Aaron, there's just a lot of aspects to her that I think is fantastic, and she is one of them.
I'm gonna go next. I think that there's one more that should be in over Kate. I do like Kate, but I think there's one more that is probably just that little bit higher. So I'm going to play strategy a little bit and say no, and put it into Danny's hand. Danny, what do you say about Kate?
I know that Kate is an important aspect of the show, but I always kind of felt like she was just there. And personally, I didn't really connect to her. The only time I really kind of felt anything was like when she started becoming like a mother to Aaron. So I actually have somebody else in mind. So I'm sorry, fair. Kate fans. I'm gonna have to say
she had to be brought up, though. She did have to be brought up. So
yeah, no, absolutely. But it's back to me, and the one I'm going to bring up is the actual mother to Aaron, Claire. Claire is one that has changed a lot over seasons, and I'm pretty sure there's at least one season she wasn't in a lot, but
5.
I mean, yeah, 5.
She's not in 5 at all.
But yeah, I mean, she's one that really had a lot of change, and there was, whether it was from the opening thing when she was pregnant, then learning how to be a mother on her own, when like we all know because of flashbacks that she was going to give up Aaron's in the first place, and actually learning how to be a mother on an island with very little supplies. So I mean, it's one of those ones that shows, and the fact that Aaron still managed to survive throughout the whole series was just really interesting and incredible. Linus, what do you say about Claire?
I love the character of Claire. I love her relationship with Charlie. I love her mothering of Aaron in the show, but Claire's my 12, and there's an 11 on my list that I really kind of want to get on there, so that I think is a little stronger than Claire, just like by a little bit. But the only reason I'm going to probably vote against Claire is just because I don't love what happens to her in season 6. Kind of wish they took a different path with her, but she kind of becomes crazy and is like the coconut baby Aaron and whatever like that. I get why they did that, but yeah, I think to the first 4 seasons, Claire is absolutely fantastic, but I don't absolutely love what they did with her in season 6, so I'm gonna vote no by that much.
Danny, what do you say about Claire?
It's a funny thing you mention it because Claire is my number 12 as well. I'm a little curious to know Linus's number 11 is, but to me, I think Claire is, for me, she would be a yes. Again, she was there from the beginning. I also like the comparisons of like her almost being kind of like parallel to like Danielle, how she was like kind of like the sweet, timid like um, mother, and then just kind of like became like this savage murderer and stuff. It was kind of weird, but I kind of like that it kind of went back to the original kind of mother who's, and then just the whole aspect that one of the first mysteries was kind of like they're like saying, "Kid, no one else can deliver this baby but you. No one else can raise the baby. That he's special." I mean, they never really went too far with that. But and then just he was the half sister of Jack, so Claire, I'm going to say yeah.
Dang it. I get it. That's fair.
But I do
I
want to
do
hear
love
what
the
11
character.
was.
Can I say who else I wanted on the list?
Oh, I was going to get Donald mentions anyway. But anyway, that's our 12 rounded up. We've got, and our final 12 was Saeed, Charlie, Hurley, Locke, Sawyer, Ben, Jack, Mr. Echo, Desmond, Faraday, Juliet, and Claire. But we're not finished there. I'm going to go to Danny. See what honorable mentions that he had.
Honorable mention, I put Rose Henderson / Bernard. Put Kate.
They're one.
And I put Sun.
And Linus, what honorable mentions did you have?
So the one that I wanted to get on the list was Richard Alpert. I think Abbott Barito is probably one of the very best episodes of season 6, and I just love towards the very end where he pulls the hair out and it's a gray hair, and he's like, "I'm growing older. I get to finally live my life now." And I just think he's such a mystery of the show, and he's a fantastic character in that element. And another honorable mentions, I'm going to throw out a character that lots of people hate, but I kind of like Michael. I like Michael. I know what he did to Anna Lucy and Libby was not great, but I think his story was very compelling, and I did like what they did with his character. Didn't absolutely like how he was just kind of randomly killed with the submarine, but I do enjoy the character of Michael a lot.
And I mean, for me, like, I had the honorable mentions I had Alex Russo on my list. I just found she was really interesting, and I mean, once again, when she found out that Danielle was actually her mother, it's just one of those things that came out. I also had Sun. I thought Sun was probably more interesting than Jin. It's what Jin and Sun was really hard to separate because it's one of those ones that, just like Rose and Bernard's, like, you only really see them as sort of one, because both of them
their
work well
flashback
together.
stuff like that.
Yeah, because I mean, both of them work well together, but it's very hard to see them working on their own. Because, like, I thought with season 2, I think Sun probably did the better out of the two when she was separated from Jin. So I mean, yeah, I also had Eloise and Frank Lapidus on my list as well.
One more I forgot. Boone. I actually named my cat Boone. So this is Boone. He's just a very small character, but I do like what Ian Somerhalder does, and he's kind of nostalgic seeing one, and Boone is still there, and I think his death is very emotional. And
Yeah.
I like the name Boone, so I named my cat Boone. Okay, you can go.
Yeah, and I mean, on the opposite side of cats, I also thought Vincent was pretty good as well. But now we get to the fun part. We actually get to actually rank the list. So basically, grab a whiteboard, piece of paper, pen, cat, sandwich, whatever you want to write on.
A cat, okay.
And write down the name of who you want to be at number 12.
Oh, can we get the list of who we have at 12 right now?
Yep, so we've got Saeed, Charlie, Hurley, Locke, Sawyer, Ben, Jack, Mr. Echo, Desmond, Faraday, Juliet, and Claire.
Okay. All right.
I'll go first on this. For me, I've got Saeed at number 12. Linus, who do you have at 12?
I have Daniel Faraday at number 12.
And Danny, who do you have at number 12?
Faraday as well.
And Faraday is number 12. Now we're one down now, number 11. I'll go to
Okay.
I'll go to Denny first. Denny, who do you have at 11?
Juliet.
Linus, who do you have at 11?
Juliet.
And I've still got Saeed.
Saeed hater right there.
No, he was just the only one I didn't have on my list.
I know it.
Voting for number 10. I've still got Saeed. Linus, who do you have?
I have Saeed this time.
Danny, who do you have for 10?
Claire.
Doesn't matter. In the end, Saeed is 10. And voting for so Danny, who do you have at 9?
Hold on. Mr. Echo.
Linus, who do you have for 9?
I have Claire at 9.
And I've got Mr. Echo.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good to know that someone is on the same wavelength as someone and we don't end up a three-way tie.
Yeah, not yet.
Right, voting for number 8. Danny, who do you have at 8?
Claire.
Linus, who do you have at 8?
Claire.
I put Desmond.
Ooh. 8. That's kind of low for Desmond. Dang. All right. Now we get to the tough part. All right.
Danny, who do you have for number 7?
I have Jack. I'm sorry, guys.
Linus, who do you have for number 7?
Sawyer.
Well, we've got a three-way tie. So I've still got Desmond. I don't think we've got anyone in the chat to help us either this time.
I'd rather have Desmond over Jack at 7, but
well, I mean, if one of you wants to change a vote, then you can. So,
What do we have currently?
Sawyer, Jack, and Desmond.
Yeah, that's the three-way tie.
That's
So.
the
For
three-way
7.
tie. I'll go with Sawyer.
Okay. Top 6, Oceanic 6.
Sawyer is 7.
Okay. All right. Now we got the Oceanic 6 left.
Yep. Danny, who do you have for 6?
I'll choose Hurley at number 6.
Whoa. I've still got Desmond. Linus, who do you have for 6?
I had Hurley.
Wow, damn. Hurley was my number 1.
Oh, sorry. Clark's gonna be mad that Harley didn't make it.
Hurley.
Well, Harley didn't make the list. Hurley did, but Harley didn't.
Yeah.
Voting for number 5. And I mean, it's probably gonna be a full 7 for me, but I'm sticking with Desmond. Linus, who do you have for 5?
I'm with you on Desmond for this one.
Danny, who do you have for 5?
I had Jack.
Oh boy. These last 4 are all fantastic.
So who are the final 4 we have right now?
Ben, Charlie, Jack, and Locke are left.
Alright, so Danny, who do you have for 4?
Jack.
Linus, who do you have for 4?
Ben.
I put Charlie.
Oh boy.
But
Where would you have put Ben on your list, Malcolm?
But I will change mine to Ben because on my personal list I've got Ben is the lowest out of the 3, so I'm changing my vote to Ben.
All
right. Ben was my number 1 guy, but that's it.
It's one of those ones when it comes to it's like this.
Okay.
It's like your
Number 4
one
is still
never
pretty
ends
good.
up.
Not bad.
He's still part of the Oceanic 6, so it's what matters.
No, he wasn't.
According to this list, he is. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and in this list, he is. Was it on Oceanic Airlines? Can't be part of Oceanic. Oh, boy.
How am I going to pick out of these 3?
Okay. If we have a 3-way tie, that's going to be funny. Malcolm? Malcolm, you there? Is this camera black for you also?
It froze, I think.
Yeah. Let's give it a second. He'll probably be back. In the meantime, So who else is not on the list? Jack's girlfriend from Stranger in a Strange Land surprisingly did not make the list.
Nikki and Pablo shockingly
Yeah.
didn't make it. Shannon,
Alana didn't make it.
no. Let's see. We didn't get Anna Lucia,
Oh, fan
Libby.
favorite. People like Libby, but
Libby
not
was
much
cool.
to offer.
Walt.
Never found out.
Walt.
Walt. They took my son. Tom Friendly. Phil. Martin Keamy didn't make the list, surprisingly. Mikhail. Mikhail's a favorite.
Lapidus.
Lapidus. No Jacob. MIB.
Jacob, no. MIB, no Smokey.
No Mikhail's cat. Mikhail's cat is a pretty
Anybody
great
else?
character.
Anyone else?
The one chick that
any
drowned.
other viewers could think of any? I don't know.
The chick that drowned in season 1.
Ethan.
Oh, Ethan, of course. Charles Widmore. Miles. Miles hasn't brought. Miles is
Oh yeah,
Charlotte.
Miles.
Miles is an alright character. I don't know if he's like. I don't dislike Miles. I just probably wouldn't put him on a favorite list.
Yeah, he was kind of just a side. One of those.
He did have his own episode though.
Yeah, and he could talk with the dead, sort of.
Arched. Leslie Arched.
Arts. You got some arts on you?
Arched is a classic character right there.
What else?
Malcolm sent something. Just a second. The mother from Across the Sea.
Adam and Eve.
Hurley's friend that he worked at the Mr. Clux with, was his name Jason?
Oh yeah, and the girl that
Starla
at the record
was that her name?
store.
Stella.
Yeah. Maybe.
Libby. Dave.
Oh, Dave.
Well, we almost ranked them. I think we're still live. Sorry.
We are still live. Is there a chat? Live chat on?
Let me check. Let's see if we got a live chat on. Sorry, everyone, if you're watching. This isn't entertaining. Someone said, John Locke for life. Yeah, John Locke for life. I agree.
Absolutely. Who knows? It could. He's still on the list. Still one of the nominees.